Welcome to the Old Glory Renovations Podcast, the podcast about home renovations from the home renovations experts. Hosted by Rob Hefner and Mike Landry. The Old Glory Renovations Podcast wants to show you how to enjoy your home renovations.
Rob's show taught me a lot.
Choosing the right contractor for the job doesn't have to be scary, and home renovations are built to enjoy and be fun.
I got so much more for my money.
Now, here are your hosts for the Old Glory Renovation Podcast, Rob Hefner and Mike Landry.
Good morning, guys. Welcome to Old Glory Renovations Podcast Show. This is show number 3. We're going to be talking about facelifts today. This is preparing for the holidays and giving your home a facelift before company arrives. I'm your host, Mike Landry. I'm talking with Rob Hefner.
Good morning.
The king of contracting. We got some really cool stuff. Now, most remodelers will not provide these types of service. And basically what you're offering is, since you actually employ 15 guys and they're on staff, your painters, they do everything, right? Trim and the whole deal. This is not to get into, for the month of December and the rest of this month, not digging in to big demo renovations. We're talking just facelift type stuff.
We're talking things that you can do to make your house look almost new, or at least new-ish. Things that just change the attitude and the feel of the home when you walk into it.
That can be done very quickly.
It actually can, depending on what you want done and the splash you want to make. It could be a pretty quick project.
Yeah, we're talking projects that take 1 day up to 6 days.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're talking new paint, new plumbing fixtures, light fixtures, doorknobs, hardware updates and replacement, and regrouting tiles, tub surrounds, showers, things like that.
Well, let's go through that list backwards. When you look into your shower and you see around the bottom, it's kind of dingy and dirty looking, and you're not real sure if that grout's been touched in the last few years, we can come and scrape out all that grout, get it cleaned up properly, put in clean white grout, and make the shower look a lot brighter just by tightening up those edges.
All right, so let's get into discussing what some of the trends are, right? Color trends, tile trends. These updates, the color palette in the last couple of decades has changed dramatically.
It absolutely has. You used to didn't see a whole lot of gray. There were beigey kind of earth tones, are kind of the standard in new construction and have been for years. But there's some interesting things coming out these days. And the idea is to make the home more comfortable, more livable, and not quite so generic.
According to the research I'm doing, what's really hot right now is soft grays, some monochromatic looks, right, where you've got just minor tonal changes from the trim to the walls, and even muted greens, which I found to be pretty interesting.
Muted greens work really, really well. One of the things you mentioned from the trim to the walls, it's getting to be more and more popular these days. Trim material, your baseboard, the doors, the trim around the doors, has always been a gloss white. Enamel paint, gloss white, that's what everybody does. But changing that color with the same finish so that everything's protected properly, but changing that color can completely change the feel of a room.
You're talking about more contrast as opposed to similar colors.
Correct. If you take a light gray room, for example, and you put white baseboard in it, then everything looks somewhat monochromatic. But we were in a house recently that the baseboard was painted black on that light gray surface. Well, that black just framed it and made it really pop for what it was, and it changed the whole feel of the room. I was really surprised at how much that little touch made a difference.
So the trends now in the hardware, like door hardware, you're finding the knobs are going away. Now we're into more linear, lever type doors, doorknob, door hardware. And some people are actually changing the color. So maybe they're going with a brushed nickel versus a chrome that they had before. It's 'cause chrome's dated, right? So I see a lot of that trending right now. And if you change the door hardware throughout the house on all the doors, right? And you went in and change the pools in the kitchen and in the baths, it's like a different house.
We were in a house not too long ago here in Clear Lake that we did exactly that. They had the old gold color on everything. Fixtures, plumbing fixtures, light fixtures, doorknobs. Even the pulls on the cabinets were little round gold knobs that the gold was flaking off on them. It just didn't look right. So just changing those things to brushed nickel and installing doorknobs that actually looked somewhat modern with the lever style, and there's a lot of different lever styles. It brightened up the house a lot and made it look something newish.
A designer told me last week, she goes, I was trying to get her to kind of give me an idea of what's really changed and trending now. And she said people are really have migrated to more of a minimalistic, as opposed to an ornate type presentation with their hardware. And it's simplified the selections because everybody's doing pretty much the same thing. But that's a huge shift.
It really is, and the way it looks is a huge shift. The term that you use there, minimalistic, there's a lot of misunderstanding about that. Making a home comfortable to live in is what we're trying to get to. Livability is a great term that's used a lot. Not making it sterile, white walls, white trim, light-colored floor. We don't want to live in a operating room, but we want the walls to have something on them that looks a little bit more livable. And those muted greens, the light grays, a lot of different color patterns come out that can really contribute to the livability of the house. And by that I mean just how comfortable you are sitting down in the middle of the room.
Well, I'll tell you that if you have your guys come in and repaint everything, it is amazing what that does to a living environment. I mean, it smells new, it's fresh, the colors are vibrant. You don't have the scratches on the wall anymore. The scratches on the door can be sanded out and they look new again. It's just it really is like a renewed experience.
We finished a job not too long ago in Clear Lake again, where we painted the living area, the hallways, and some of the bathrooms. And just taking away the dark color that they had on there and putting on a light gray. It was just barely gray at all. And changing out some light fixtures, putting drawer pulls on. They didn't have drawer pulls on the cabinets at all. But putting those and having those match the doorknob style, and they kind of matched, at least in color and general style, with the light fixtures we put in. It completely changed that house. Before that, it was almost a cave. It just felt dark and closed in. But getting the fresh paint on the walls and getting it spruced up a little bit made all the difference in the world.
Well, and this is the most important aspect of what we're talking about. Traditional remodeling companies would not touch us with a 10-foot pole. You'd have to find an expensive handyman to touch projects like this because it's not $20,000 or $30 or $50, right? These are like one man, 1 day jobs, two guys, 5 day jobs that are quick and efficient. And if you didn't have your guys on staff, on payroll, then you would not be able to do that either. You can't subcontract those little jobs. I mean, you're talking things that are $1,000 projects to, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 projects. They're just not big projects. But you do this for the people that need these kinds of services during the holidays to help them get the stuff, keep your guys busy, and get the stuff that they really need at the time they need it.
Absolutely. We want to take care of our homeowners. And I'm not going to tell you there's not a selfish component to it. These guys work for me. And over the holidays, sometimes it's hard to keep them busy. Nobody wants their house torn up on Christmas Day. That's just not cool. But being able to get in there on that last minute, oh my goodness, mother-in-law's coming, I can't have the house looking like this kind of thing. We can come in there and tend to that, and it helps me out because I can keep my guys busy and they're doing something constructive. And it helps out my homeowners just by transforming their house and getting it ready for Christmas.
All right, so I'm talking with Rob Hefner. I'm Mike Landry. This is Old Glory Renovations podcast. You can call them today at 281-546-8836, 281-546-8836, or you can just go online to oldglorytx.com. Stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back with more of the Old Glory Renovations podcast. Old Glory Renovations revolutionized the industry to put the customer in total control. There's little to no deposit to begin work, weekly invoicing only on completed work, weekly itemized labor and material cost for invoicing, eliminating wasting your money with overpriced turnkey estimates. Their trade labor are on staff and not subcontractors. They don't leave projects sitting dormant for days or weeks or waiting on a subcontractor. They have proper general liability insurance coverage. Call Old Glory Renovations now and take control while maximizing your buying power. Old Glory, trust, honesty, confidence. Taking the fear out of home improvement. 281-546-8836 or online at oldglorytx.com. The Old Glory Renovations podcast, helping you enjoy your renovations. Now let's get back to Rob and Mike.
Thanks for hanging with us, guys. It's Old Glory Renovations podcast. I'm Mike Landry. I'm talking to Rob Hefner. We're talking about facelifts today, and now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of the projects that you've got going on. Let's go to Galveston, Miss Lucy. This is a project where they're basically replacing the door and cabinet hardware, regrouting the tub surrounds in the shower. Tell me about that, Rob.
Well, this is an interesting little job. The house is dated. It was built in the 50s, and some of the things haven't been touched since then, like a lot of houses. But we're going in there and cleaning up the showers and getting all that dinginess out of the showers and putting a sealant on them so everything's going to stay the way it needs to be. Replacing the drawer pulls that were. This is the one that had the old gold round ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I forget how popular gold was back. That color gold was back then.
Right.
It was abused. It was so bad.
Well, and it never lasted. In 10 years, those knobs start flaking. You know, there's pieces coming off of them, and they just don't look new anymore. And swapping out those doorknobs, getting that matching drawer pulls in place, it's not a big job. It was 4 to 5 days, but again, it completely changed the feel of the house and made it look like it was somewhere you wanted to be.
Now this was the project that he just replaced the door and cabinet hardware and regrouted tub surround and shower. So that was a 2-day deal for one guy.
Yes. I misspoke.
That was in Galveston. Okay, so just simple in and out, and man, she was just elated at how much different the home felt. Now she's got some more stuff scheduled for you guys.
That's where I got confused. We're going to be back in that house in January. She's happy with the job we did here, so now we're talking about what we're going to do for later after the new year.
And what's important about that is that project was in the hundreds, not the thousands.
Absolutely.
So moving to Clear Lake, this is a 6-day project with 2 guys. Where you guys were repainting the main living areas in the master bed and bath, updating all the hardware, repainting the cabinets, and a couple of new light fixtures.
The light fixtures in that home were the old ceiling mount, almost flush to the ceiling, and gold trim around them. A lot of people are getting rid of gold these days. And they didn't put out a lot of light. Mm-hmm. And swapping out those old-fashioned light fixtures for LED fixtures, not LED light bulbs, but LED fixtures, provides so much more light and brightness to a room. It can really change. Just the light fixtures alone can brighten up a place so much it's just hardly recognizable. And, of course, when you change the fixtures on the doorknobs and that kind of stuff, it can really have a big impact for not an insane amount of money.
Well, I'll tell you one thing: when you're repainting cabinets, like in the kitchen or in the master bath or the secondary baths, it changes the entire environment. It's like having new cabinets.
It is. Painting cabinets is a tedious job. most of the time, if you're going to do it right, most of the time is spent getting them ready to paint.
Correct. That's right.
Preparing the surface, because if you don't prepare the surface right for paint, it's not going to work. It's a tedious job. It takes a little longer. I'm always frustrated with how long cabinets take, but I'm always pushing my guys. Why aren't we done yet? If you did it today, why did you finish it yesterday? I want to push them just enough that they're busy all the time, but not so much that quality is ever going to suffer.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. After 22 years in the building industry and in remodeling, the two guys that will absolutely make you or break you are the painter and the trim guy. And you've got two of the best. Your paint crew is awesome, and your trim guy is unbelievable.
I tell you what, Jeremy went into a house this past week that had a couple holes in the wall from some other stuff that had been done there, but 4 or 5 holes in the wall. And he patched them, floated them, painted them, got everything done. I went and looked at it. I couldn't find where the patches were.
Okay, now that is the hardest thing on the planet to do, is blend a wall and where it doesn't show that patch. I mean, those guys right there, because I was having to subcontract my guys.
Yeah.
And every time my guy was not available and I had to bring in another crew, I had to have him come and fix it because it wasn't to the standard of quality that I use a flashlight. I want to, and they don't like seeing that flashlight on the wall. So, because it shows all the imperfections. So, the fact that your guys are on staff, that never happens.
With Jeremy, I don't have to worry about sheetrock. He does an amazing job with it. He's a really good painter as well. And
I mean, most paint crews that you subcontract suck at that. I mean, really, it's hard to find one that really that has the ability and the intent to do it right.
It takes patience. It takes patience and skill. The technical components of it we could talk about for hours, but it's not just throw a little texture on the wall and hope it turns out right. They really have to know what they're doing.
All right, let's talk about Kenneth and Seabrook. This is 2 days, one guy. We're talking 2 windows needed to be reglazed, a little bit of paint for sheetrock patches. I've noticed a lot of people have patches and that they never got painted, and there's actually 3 of them in my house right now. And here's a very, very common thing for 20-plus-year-old homes. He had several doors that were sticking that won't close. And you guys fixed all of that stuff.
Right. The doors was just minor adjustments. It's not that the foundation was bad or anything. It's just minor adjustments need to be made to the doors.
Structures move.
Structures move. The sheetrock grandson came in and took out a doorstop, and the doorknob hit the wall and made a dent in the wall. It happens.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of sheetrock repairs we were doing in his house. And in his home, it's just a lot of little things like that, replacing the glass in the windows and fixing those little sheetrock repairs and the doors and just little things like that to get his home where he wants it to be.
This is handyman type work.
This is handyman type work, and handyman type work is difficult. For a lot of different reasons, but I'm happy to dig into that when we can. Well,
and for the holidays, during each holiday, you provide these services, and these projects are not in the tens of thousands of dollars. These are hundreds or a few thousand. I mean, these are really, really small projects. You cannot get any remodeler to touch this with a 10-foot pole. And when I had my company, I wouldn't have touched it either, because there's no meat on the bone if you don't employ the guys, if they're not on your staff and you're keeping them busy, right?
There's no meat on the bone even so, but I got to keep them busy. So we're trying to do what we can to keep things moving forward, and pretty happy with the way it's going right now.
Let's go to Friendswood. Now, this is a commercial project. You do commercial projects too. This was an 8-day project that you actually finished in 5. You removed 3 walls, interior walls, repaired the drop ceiling, repainted the walls and the ceiling, and sealed the floor.
This was basically a whiteout in commercial lingo for a strip center kind of thing. Mm-hmm. They were going into it with a gym, and they just needed all the interior walls removed. They wanted the walls freshened up. They wanted a different color on the ceiling, a drop ceiling, and we got the right people in there. Jeremy again led that team, and they just knocked it out. I was thrilled with the progress they made and how quickly they got it done.
You estimated 8 days.
I estimated
in
8
your
days.
forecast, and
Right.
you guys knocked it out in 5.
We knocked it out in 5. There were some long days in there, but we knocked it out in 5. I was really happy with how that job went and the way it looked at the end. It was right.
Well, you're also saving that customer money because you're billing on an hourly basis for your
Right.
labor, right? And saving 3 days worth of labor is a huge deal to him. It's time and materials, right? It's not, hey, let me throw a dart at the board. I think my labor cost is going to be about $3,000 here, and materials or some ambiguous number. You are billing weekly on work progress. Okay, so whatever got installed, whatever got bought, you have a detailed, itemized list of all that and exactly how many man hours it took to accomplish that, regardless of what you forecasted. Like, you felt this project, for whatever reason, was going to take 8 days, but you guys executed and finished in 5. That saved that guy a lot of money, and he's super happy. I'm going to be actually interviewing him soon.
Absolutely. We had tile on the floor, and we were expecting trouble bringing up the tile and getting the glue underneath it removed. And we got something that just worked really, really well for that, and the project just rolled right along. Like I say, really happy with Jeremy's performance on that one.
All right, so we're going to wrap it up today, but let me tell you guys something. If you want to leverage your dollars to get the maximum amount of value for the dollars you're investing at the highest level of quality and be in complete control, then Old Glory Renovations is the solution for you. 281-546-8836. 281-546-8836. You can find them online at oldglorytx.com. And what are our 3 creeds? Trust, honesty, and confidence.
Trust, confidence, and honesty.
Those are absolute facts and ways of life for this organization. Rob Hefner is a 32-year Army veteran, retired, and he does not take any bullshit.
No, I try not to, but looking forward to hearing from you. Give me a call. We'll see what we can do to help you out.
See you next week, boys.
That's all for this week's Old Glory Renovations podcast. Tune in next week when Mike and Rob help you enjoy your renovations. Find out more at oldglorytx.com.